Bill, now let's turn to actually going out and finding the 10 customers. How do you do it?
The first thing you have to do is you have to go back and look at your target customer profile. That we did early on in this process, and that defines who the customer is at a general level. That's what we use to do our total addressable market. We ended up picking someone out of that who was a persona we thought best represented it. But within that target customer profile, we did a demographic analysis of it, and we did a psychometric analysis of it.
What's the difference?
Well, demographic is kind of here's how old they are, here's how much money they make. It's kind of like things that you can identify. Psychometric analysis, here's the types of things they like to do. They have an iPhone 6. They like to watch cable TV. You know, it's not those things that are just factual from a demographic standpoint. But these behavioral type of things could lead you to find customers as well. They'll tell you where their watering holes are. They'll tell you things that you can identify about them.
And in the process of doing primary customer research, you must have met a lot of people, so you can go back to them and present them with more data that you've generated over the course of the process, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's very important when you go out and do primary market research to understand this is pure gold. If you do a good job, this is pure gold that you can mine over and over again. And so you're going to get, you're going to interview people, and you might say, oh, person X isn't in our target customer group. But keeping that data is very important, because that may turn out later, you might want to come back and say, maybe that person should be in our target customer group. Or potentially you go back and say, oh, person X is clearly not in our target customer group. And having an anti-persona is sometimes as valuable or more valuable than having the persona, because it's not just about selecting what you do, it's about deselecting those things that you will not do. And as Steve Jobs once said, I'm as proud of the things that I haven't done as those things that I have done. That's disciplined entrepreneurship.
Let's explore two scenarios. On the one hand, you can go out, find 10 customers, and receive very positive feedback. On the other hand, you can find data that is inconsistent with your earlier image of the persona. How do you deal with both of the scenarios?
What's going to happen is you're going to actually have both of those. You're going to go out and show your full life cycle use case to a customer, and they're going to validate certain parts, they're going to invalidate other parts, and they're going to refine a whole lot of it.
In business-to-business markets, it is common to get letters of intent from interested customers to ask customers to prepay for the solution. Is this something you'd recommend at this step?
Now, it's a little early in the process, but I think this is a really good point to think about. In B2C, you can go out and try many different customers and not worry so much about it. In B2B, when you're talking about businesses, there's a smaller set of customers. And if you go out and talk to them, you want to have a very positive engagement with them, because it's a very good chance you're going to go back to them later. A great example of this was some of our students, Andy and Melinda. They went out and they were starting a new company. And basically, they went to landfill sites and they came up with a kind of mesh network to capture the methane that comes out of that to use it for energy. They went out to landfill sites and they tested the idea on them. They refined the idea, and then they started getting very positive feedback. What they did at that point was, while understanding they were still not committing to do the product, the customers wanted to sign letters of intent. They really wanted to get a commitment. And so at that point, Melinda and Andy actually got letters of intent from them, but they had the caveat that the product could change over time. But it was extremely compelling for them. They knew that they were onto something good. And this convinced other potential employees, other advisors, investors, that Loci Control was onto something good. It took the risk out of the new venture.
Your list of customers is a very important asset for your company. What recommendations do you have for entrepreneurs in protecting that asset?
That's a really good point, Erdine, is that a lot of times, and this is probably at MIT more so than other places, is people think all the magic is in the technology. It's in the intellectual property that they filed with the patent office. There's the other side of the equation that's equally important, and that's what we refer to as customer IP. This is an asset that you've developed over time, which required skill, investment, and maybe some luck. And once you've developed this customer IP, it is extremely valuable asset as well that you shouldn't just go put up on your website. Because if you do that, then someone else will come along with comparable technology, and then they'll say, oh, these are your customers, let me go talk to them. Maybe I can get it at a lower price. So don't do that any more than you would show people your patent application.
Well, Bill, we covered a lot today. What should be the key takeaway?
The key is you're getting more confidence, because up until this point, we put a stake in the ground. It's kind of like in golf. We took our first shot towards the hole, but we're not there by any stretch. And identifying the next 10 customers gets us much closer to the hole. It gets us hopefully on the green. And that confidence is not only important to us as the founding team, but we're also going to need to convince other customers. And those customers, because of our confidence, will be easier to convince, because we know what we have is closer to the pin, so to speak. And it will also help us to get advisors, investors, and other key employees. So this is a very important step for us.